They said I had no place here until they wanted my house. Family tried to steal my home. I never thought I'd be back in this neighborhood. As I parked my car on the street I grew up on, the weight in my chest grew heavier. The familiar cracks in the sidewalk, the same peeling paint on the mailbox, the big oak tree that used to shade the front yard, all of it looked exactly the same. And yet, I felt like a stranger. It had been 7 years since I last stepped foot near this place. 7 years since my own parents told me they didn't have space for me anymore. I was 19, just starting community college and juggling 2 part-time jobs. When my younger brother Kyle needed his own room, they decided that I was the one who had to go. "We love you, Ethan," my mom had said, not meeting my eyes, "but it's time you learn how to live on your own." It wasn't a discussion. It was an announcement. No dorm, no backup plan, no financial help, just a cardboard box of my things and a cold goodbye. I slept in my car for weeks, picked up extra shifts at the diner, eventually found a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and despair. I worked hard. I got through school, I got a job in marketing. I built a life, piece by piece, bruise by bruise. And when I finally had enough saved, I bought a house, a small 2-bedroom place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I painted the walls myself. I planted the garden. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. And now they want it. A week ago, my mom called out of the blue. "No, hi honey, how are you?" No catching up, just Kyle and Jessica are having a baby. They need more space. We thought it would make sense if they moved into your place. I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. But she wasn't. "You're single, Ethan. It's just you and that mutt of yours. You don't need all that space." I nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious, Mom? You threw me out of your house, and now you want the one I built for myself?" She sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. "We didn't throw you out. You were becoming a man, and we thought it was time. You kicked me out because Kyle wanted my room," I snapped. "You didn't even help me find a place to stay." "Well, that was a long time ago," she said dismissively. "You can't hold on to that forever." Apparently they could forget, but I couldn't. Not the nights I went to sleep hungry. Not the months I worked 12-hour shifts just to keep the lights on. That house was my salvation, my safe space, my proof that I mattered. I told her no, firmly, politely, but absolutely no. Then came the guilt. "You're being selfish, Ethan," my dad said when he called the next day. "Family helps family. Don't you want your brother's child to grow up with a yard? With stability?" "You mean the way I didn't?" I wanted to scream. And now they've escalated. I got a notice from a lawyer. Apparently, the property deed still has my dad's name on it because I used him as a CO signer when I bought the house. I didn't think it would matter. I made every payment. The mortgage was mine, the home was mine. But technically, legally, it isn't. They're trying to claim the house, to gift it to Kyle and Jessica. And once again, I'm being pushed out of the only home I've ever had. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the conversation with my mom over and over again in my head. Her voice still echoed, calm, calculating, entitled. "They're moving in whether you like it or not." The sheer audacity of that sentence made my blood boil. For years, they treated me like an outsider, an inconvenience. Now, suddenly, when I had something they wanted, a home, they were acting like I owed it to them. At 9 a.m. sharp, my phone buzzed. "Tyler, heard you talk to Mom. Let's just make this easy. It's not like you're using the extra space. He didn't even greet me. No, how are you? No, thanks for taking the call. Just straight to the point." I ignored the message. By noon, he was at my door. I stood frozen when I saw him through the peephole. He had that smug look he'd always worn when he knew he had Mom backing him up. He knocked like he owned the place. 3 loud, confident bangs. "Open up, Jess. Let's be adults about this." I opened the door just enough to make eye contact. "I have nothing to say to you. You're being unreasonable." Mom and Dad made it clear. This house was meant for family. I am family, Tyler, but I guess that only matters when I have something you want, he smirked. Look, you've got a career, no kids, barely any furniture in this place. I have a wife and 2 children. You're living in excess while we struggle. That's not my fault, and don't pretend like you cared about me before this. His face darkened. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. They can take legal action if you don't cooperate. They can try. He paused for a second, maybe trying to measure how serious I was. Then, with a shallow sigh, he stepped back. This isn't over, he muttered. I closed the door in his face. For the next few days, I avoided calls. From Mom, from Tyler, even from my cousin Sarah, who always tried to mediate. I needed time to think, to breathe. Then came the letter, a legal notice, from my own parents. It claimed that the original down payment on the house had been gifted under the assumption that it would benefit the family as a whole. They were now demanding partial ownership and, effectively, trying to transfer my title to include Tyler. My hands shook as I read it. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about everything they never gave me. Every way they'd made me feel small and invisible. I called my lawyer the next morning. He reviewed the documents and reassured me, "You're the legal owner. No one can take that from you without a fight." And that's exactly what I was preparing for. But then things got worse. Tyler's wife posted a long Facebook rant, something about selfish family members and betrayal. People began taking sides. I got texts from distant relatives, some supporting me, others guilt-tripping me. I felt alone, but I wasn't going to back down. That weekend, I visited the old family home. Just standing on the porch brought back memories, some good, most bad. I saw the same door I had walked out of years ago with my suitcase in hand. No one had come after me then, and now they had the nerve to come after my home? My mom opened the door. She looked surprised, but not exactly happy. "Jessica," she said coolly. "I'm not giving up my house," I said. "I came here to say it face to face. If you want to sue me, go ahead. I'll fight it. But you don't get to rewrite history just because now you need me." Her lips pursed. "We're your family." Funny how you only remember that when it benefits you. I turned and walked away. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing tall. They had pushed me aside when I needed them most. Now I was reclaiming the space they never allowed me to have. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cold cup of coffee in front of me. I hadn't slept a wink. My thoughts ran in 1,000 directions. The nerve of them, my mother, my brother, and his perfect little family, trying to take my house like it was some toy they could just pass around. Then came the knock. Not a soft knock, not a polite one, a loud, arrogant, "we're here to take what's ours" kind of knock. I opened the door to see my mother, standing like she owned the place, with Mark right behind her, arms folded like a bouncer. His wife and 2 kids were waiting in their minivan, parked confidently in my driveway. "Good morning," my mother said like she was offering me tea. "What do you want?" I asked flatly, already exhausted from the emotional drain. "We've come to discuss a solution," she said. "It's best if we all talk like adults." Mark stepped forward. "Look, this house is too big for you. You're just one person. We've got 2 kids. It makes more sense if we live here. You could move into an apartment downtown. It's more your style anyway." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous. The audacity was unbelievable. This house was left to me, in the will. It's legally mine. My mother raised an eyebrow. "Legality doesn't always mean what's right, and kicking me out when I was 17, was that right?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't bring up the past. We did what we had to do. You were difficult, unmanageable." I felt a wave of heat rise in my chest. I was a teenager with anxiety, not a criminal. "You didn't manage me. You abandoned me." Mark stepped in, raising his voice. "This is about moving forward, not whining about what happened 10 years ago. Moving forward for you, maybe, not me." Then Mom did it. She played the guilt card. "Don't forget who raised you, who paid for your school, your clothes, your food. You wouldn't be here without us." I looked her dead in the eye. You raised me until I became inconvenient. Then you tossed me aside like trash. There was silence. Thick, tense silence. Finally, Mark broke it. We're giving you a week. 1 week to decide. Sell us the house at market value or we'll take legal steps. I couldn't believe my ears. You're threatening me now? He shrugged. We're offering a solution. If you can't be reasonable, we'll handle it differently. I shut the door in their faces. That night, I called my lawyer. She listened patiently, then sighed. Technically, you're in the clear. The house is yours. But families, they'll make it messy. They'll dig up anything they can, challenge mental fitness, claim undue influence, even fake paperwork. I felt sick. So what do? Fight. If you want to keep what's yours, you'll have to stand your ground and prepare for war. Over the next few days, I started collecting everything. Documents, the original will, proof of ownership, even old letters from my grandfather that showed his clear intent. I knew they were manipulative, but I didn't expect them to stoop this low. Then things escalated. I got a notice from Child Services. An anonymous tip had been made about neglect and unsafe conditions in the home. Me, someone with no children. It was so obviously false, I laughed when I saw it. But the social worker still had to do an inspection. Guess who was watching from the van across the street while it happened? My brother and his wife. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They were trying to ruin me. I wasn't going to let them win. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house made my skin crawl. I had lived in that home for 7 years, and suddenly it no longer felt safe. Not because of ghosts or monsters, but because the people who shared my blood had turned into strangers. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. I need to know my rights, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She listened patiently as I told her everything. How my parents had kicked me out when I was 17, how I'd put myself through school, how I bought this house on my own, and now, years later, they were trying to take it away and hand it over to my brother, Jake. When I was finished, she asked just one question. Is the house in your name? Yes, I said, fully, paid off, no mortgage. Then you have nothing to worry about legally, she said. Emotionally, that's a different battle. And she was right. Because even though I wasn't in danger of losing my home through legal means, my family didn't care about laws or paperwork. They cared about guilt, manipulation, emotional warfare. 2 days later, my mom showed up on my porch. She didn't even knock, just stood there, arms folded, judgment written all over her face. I raised you better than this, she said the moment I opened the door. Did you? I asked. Because I remember sleeping in the garage when you ran out of room. I remember Jake getting my bedroom and you telling me I had to learn to be independent. That was years ago, she said, brushing it off. We did what we had to. Now Jake's struggling. He has a baby on the way. He needs that house more than you. My chest tightened. So because I worked hard and made something of myself, I'm the one who has to give everything up? We're family, she said simply, as if that one word justified everything. I know we're family, I replied, but family doesn't mean sacrifice only flows one way. She turned on her heel and left. No goodbye, no apology. Jake messaged me later that day. Jake, you seriously won't help me out? This could be a fresh start for me. For my kid. Me, it's not my responsibility to fix your life, Jake. Jake, mom and dad are disappointed in you. Me, they've been disappointed in me since I was 17. That's nothing new. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the silence thick. I could hear the echo of old memories, birthday parties I wasn't invited to, family dinners where no one saved me a seat, holidays where I was just an afterthought. I wasn't grieving the loss of a house, I was grieving the illusion of family. A few days passed. Then I received something that made my blood run cold. A petition, handwritten, signed by members of my extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them urging me to do the right thing and give the house to Jake, calling me selfish, cold, heartless. One of the comments read, What kind of sister chooses stone over blood? I laughed out loud, bitterly. I'd been invisible for a decade, and now that I had something they wanted, I was suddenly the villain for keeping it. But it was Jake's voice message that broke something inside me. "I used to look up to you," he said. "Now I just think you're pathetic, clinging to bricks and wood like it means more than people. No wonder they kicked you out." I deleted the message without replying. I started making changes, new locks, security cameras. I even added a motion detection system on my porch. I refused to feel unsafe in the only place I'd ever truly made my own. And then, the final straw. They showed up again. All of them. My parents, Jake, his pregnant girlfriend, even a few uncles. They stood outside my house holding signs. "Justice for Jake. Family over greed. Be a sister, not a stranger." It was surreal. My neighbors came out, watching from across the street. A few filmed it. Someone asked if I needed to call the cops. I said no. I opened the door, walked outside, and faced them all. "You want this house?" I said loudly. "Then you should have raised me better, loved me better, treated me like a daughter instead of a burden. But you didn't. And now you don't get to rewrite history just because you're desperate." Jake stepped forward. "Please, just think about the baby." "I am," I said. "I'm thinking how lucky that child is to have a dad like you, the kind that expects handouts instead of earning them." Silence. Then I went back inside and closed the door. That day, I stopped being afraid of losing my family, because the truth was, I never really had them to begin with. I sat alone in my living room late into the night, old family photos scattered across the coffee table. Pictures of my childhood, me and Dad standing by the old family house, smiling wide and carefree. That house was mine now, legally and financially. Yet somehow it didn't feel like mine anymore. Every corner echoed the silent words I'd never heard when they kicked me out all those years ago. "You don't belong here." My phone buzzed. It was Tyler again. I didn't answer. After Mom and Dad made it clear they wanted to hand the house over to him, he grew cocky, acting as if the place was already his. He didn't even consider that I might fight for it. I wasn't going to give up so easily. I needed help. Not just a lawyer, but someone who understood the tangled mess of family, betrayal, and bitter history. I reached out to Jennifer, a sharp young attorney I met back in college. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe downtown. Jennifer listened patiently as I laid out everything. The years of being kicked out, the endless struggle to build a life from scratch, and now this absurd battle over the home I had worked so hard for. "This isn't just about legality," she said, flipping through the documents. "Your parents don't have a leg to stand on. The house is fully in your name and you paid every cent. But family battles? They're brutal. They go beyond contracts. They use guilt, manipulation, and every dirty trick." Her words were a breath of fresh air. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't alone, that maybe I had a chance to stand my ground and not be steamrolled. That night, just as I was about to lock the door behind me, the unexpected happened. Mom showed up, no warning, no call, just her, standing there on my porch, arms folded, eyes sharp and unreadable. "I need to talk," she said flatly. I hesitated, then let her in. The house suddenly felt smaller with her there. Memories rushed back, old wounds, buried anger, the long years of silence. She launched into her usual routine, a guilt trip disguised as concern. "We did what was best for the family," she said. "You did what was easiest," I shot back. "You abandoned me." Her eyes flickered, but she held her ground. "You're being selfish. I'm fighting for what's mine. For the home I built with my own two hands." The conversation spiraled quickly. Accusations flew, truths twisted, old resentments poured out like a broken dam. We both said things we'd buried for years, things that hurt. At one point, she said, "You don't understand what it means to carry this family." I laughed bitterly. "Maybe. Because I'm done carrying the weight of your judgment." As she stood up to leave, I realized something crucial. This fight wasn't just about a house. It was about respect, about being seen, about finally standing up to the people who tried to erase me. The days that followed were a storm. Tyler's messages increased, Some were angry, others pleading. "Tyler, just sell the house. We'll pay you more than it's worth. No need for a fight." Me, "No amount of money will buy back the years you ignored me." He stopped texting after that. But then came the Facebook posts. My extended family took sides online, turning this private pain into a public spectacle. Some called me selfish, others praised my courage. The family group chat exploded with heated arguments and passive-aggressive jabs. One cousin wrote, "Jessica, you're breaking the family apart. Are you sure this is what you want?" I wanted to scream, "I want a family that doesn't try to steal from me." At work, colleagues asked if everything was okay. Rumors had spread. It was exhausting. But amidst the chaos, I found unexpected support. A neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, brought over homemade soup and kind words. "You don't deserve this," she said softly. "I see how hard you work." Even my boss gave me time off to handle the legal battle. I realized then that family isn't just blood. It's those who stand by you when everything falls apart. One evening, while reviewing documents with Jennifer, we discovered something shocking. An old deed, signed by my parents years ago, that gave partial ownership of the land to my brother, without my knowledge. It was a loophole, a back door. They'd been planning this for years. I sat back, stunned. This wasn't just a battle over a house, it was a war. And that's when I knew I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting for my identity, my dignity, my right to belong. After the shock of discovering that hidden deed, I knew this fight was far from over. My family wasn't just trying to bully me out of my home. They had planned this for years. They'd tried to find a loophole, something to exploit. And for a moment, I felt like a pawn in a game I didn't even know was being played. Jennifer and I spent hours poring over every document we could find. Property records, bank statements, emails. Every detail mattered now. She explained the legal maze I was about to enter. Claims, counterclaims, affidavits, even the possibility of a messy court battle that could drag on for months or years. I was scared, but something else was growing stronger inside me. Anger. Not the blind rage that once consumed me, but a sharp, burning determination. I wasn't about to let them erase me again. At work, the gossip hadn't died down. Some colleagues looked at me with sympathy, others with judgment. I overheard whispered conversations. "Must be tough dealing with family drama at that age," one said. I wanted to tell them family isn't about age or blood. It's about loyalty, something I'd been missing for a long time. One afternoon, I got an email from an old friend, Lisa. She'd heard about my situation and wanted to help. "Let me know if you need anything," she wrote. "I've got contacts who've dealt with family property disputes. I'm in your corner." It was the first real lifeline I'd gotten in months. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly. Tyler wasn't giving up. "Tyler, you're making a huge mistake. We can make this easy." I blocked his number. But then came the social media storms. Posts from my extended family accusing me of tearing the family apart. Comments like, "Greedy and selfish, shouldn't you be ashamed?" filled my feeds. It stung, but it also steeled me. I responded once calmly, "I am fighting for my home and my dignity. That's not selfish, that's survival." The replies stopped. One night, Jennifer called with news. They filed a motion to challenge your ownership based on that old deed. If they win, your claim could be weakened. I felt the walls closing in. "How do we fight this?" I asked. "With evidence, witnesses, and proving the intent behind the deed was to mislead." She smiled grimly. "This is war." I spent weeks gathering anything that could help. Old emails from my parents where they talked about sorting out the house, even voicemails where Mom hinted I was too difficult. I found neighbors willing to testify that I had maintained the property alone for years. It felt surreal. My life had become a courtroom drama. Then, a surprise visit. Mom showed up again, this time with tears. "I don't want this to destroy us," she said. I looked at her, really looked. Behind the eyes, there was guilt, maybe even regret. But I couldn't forget. "You don't get to pick and choose when to be family." I said quietly. "You hurt me once, and now you want to act like nothing happened?" She nodded, voice shaking. "I was wrong, we all were, but the damage was done." In the middle of this chaos, I found moments of clarity. One evening, sitting by the fireplace, I thought about what this fight really meant. It wasn't about bricks and mortar, it was about fighting to be seen, to matter, to remind the people who abandoned me that I am here and I'm not going anywhere. The battle wasn't over, but I was no longer scared, because sometimes the hardest fights bring the strongest victories. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just the temperature, though the AC was cranked up like it was a meat locker, but the atmosphere. It was thick with tension, distrust, and a silent war of gazes. I sat at the plaintiff's table, clutching my folder like a lifeline. Across the room, my parents and Jake sat smugly, as if this whole ordeal was just another inconvenience for them to sweep under the rug. Jennifer was calm, confident, everything I wasn't feeling inside. As the hearing began, my lawyer laid out the case. The house was fully mine, purchased with my money and maintained by me for years. The deed my family tried to use was outdated and never intended to transfer full ownership. But then came the first witness, Uncle Rick, who had supported my family's claim. His testimony was a blow. He painted me as irresponsible, the black sheep who'd been absent for years, the one who abandoned his family for his own selfish reasons. I felt my jaw tighten, but Jennifer gave me a reassuring glance. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and spoke honestly. I didn't abandon my family, they abandoned me. When I was 17, I was told there was no room for me anymore. I left because I had to survive. Murmurs filled the courtroom. Some faces softened, others hardened. The hearing dragged on for hours, and each piece of evidence felt like a battle won or lost. But my most powerful weapon wasn't paperwork or witnesses. It was the truth. Raw, painful, undeniable. Outside the courthouse, the media had gathered. Reporters asked questions, and my family's story was suddenly public. I didn't expect the spotlight. I never wanted it. But here I was, fighting not just for a house, but for my dignity in front of the world. Strangely, the attention brought support. Messages flooded in from old friends, neighbors, even strangers who related to my story of family betrayal and standing up for oneself. One email from a woman named Sarah struck me deeply. She wrote, "I left my own family after years of being treated like a burden. Your courage gives me hope." Back at home, the atmosphere had shifted. Mom and Dad barely spoke to me, and Jake avoided eye contact. One evening, Jake showed up unannounced. "I want to talk," he said, nervous but determined. We sat down, the tension was palpable. "I've been thinking," he started. "Maybe we all messed up. Maybe it's not just about the house." I nodded slowly. "I want to find a way to fix this," he said, "for the baby, for all of us." His words surprised me, but years of pain made me cautious. "Actions speak louder than words, Jake," I replied. "You're welcome to try, but it's going to take more than talk." The court date arrived. Jennifer's cross-examination was fierce and precise. She exposed inconsistencies in the family's claims and highlighted their attempts to manipulate the situation. When the judge called for a recess, my heart raced. Outside, I caught sight of Mom staring at me, tears glistening in her eyes. For a moment, I wanted to believe this fight could end differently. The ruling came 2 weeks later. The judge ruled in my favor. The house was legally mine. But the victory felt bittersweet. Because in that moment, I realized something vital. I had won the house, but lost the family. That night, I sat alone on the porch, the cool breeze whispering around me. The house stood firm behind me, a fortress built from years of struggle, pain, and resilience. I whispered to myself, "This is my home now, and I'm not letting go." The judge's ruling felt like a thunderclap. The house was mine, legally, unquestionably. The ink on the papers was barely dry when I stood on the porch, clutching the keys, the weight of victory settling heavily on my shoulders. It wasn't the triumphant moment I'd imagined during the darkest nights of this battle. No, it was quieter, almost hollow. I thought winning the house would bring me peace, closure, maybe even reunite a fractured family. Instead, it left a jagged scar where once there might have been hope. Mom didn't speak to me for weeks. Dad's memory was invoked more like a weapon than a comfort. Tyler disappeared from our lives like smoke, and Jake, he showed up once, eyes heavy with something like shame, but never stayed long enough to say anything meaningful. The house itself felt different. It was the same four walls, the same creaky floorboards, but the air was charged with absence. Memories lingered, but so did ghosts. Ghosts of betrayal, neglect, and unspoken truths. I wandered the rooms at night, feeling the silence scream louder than any argument ever could. In the kitchen, the place where my mother once held court with passive-aggressive remarks disguised as concern, I brewed my morning coffee. The ritual was comforting, grounding, but even in these small moments, I was reminded how deeply broken this family was. I started therapy a few weeks after the ruling, partly because Jennifer suggested it, partly because I needed to figure out who I was after years of being defined by their neglect and hostility. Sitting in that chair, I realized something important. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my identity, for my right to exist as someone worthy of love and respect. The legal battle was only the surface of a deeper wound. Friends who stuck by me during the chaos became my real family. Lisa helped me organize my life, reminding me that love doesn't have to come with conditions or history. Mrs. Thompson, my kind neighbor, dropped by regularly with homemade meals and quiet conversations. And Sarah's email stayed on my phone's lock screen as a daily reminder of resilience. The public attention faded, but the lessons stayed. Sometimes I catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting another message from Tyler or a family member trying to make amends. But those messages never come. The silence is deafening but strangely freeing. I'm learning that not all battles end with a handshake or a hug. Sometimes victory is a quiet walk away. The house is finally starting to feel like home. I've repainted the walls, fixed the porch swing, and even planted a small garden in the backyard, a patch of green hope growing from hard soil. Still, when I sit outside at night, the stars overhead remind me that some things are bigger than our pain, bigger than grudges and broken promises. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day my family will come around, maybe they won't. But I do know this: I survived, I fought, and I built something no one can take from me, not just a house, but my own life. So here I am, sharing my story, not for pity, not for validation, but because sometimes we all need to know that even when the people who should love us the most try to tear us down, we can rise. And just when I thought I was done, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, no signature, just a single line inside: "You haven't seen the last of us." The fight might be over, but the war? That's something else entirely. If you ever feel invisible or unwanted, remember this: you're worth fighting for, even if you have to fight alone.